I want to give a special shout out to all my patrons, my Bibliosprand, Bibliohowlers, and Bibliomancers. Thank you so much for supporting my hobby and passion even more. It means so much to me. Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video will be SFF Spotlight, and today is episode 11 of SFF Spotlight. You know the drill, this is a series of videos where I talk about new book news, new cover reveals, and new special edition being announced in the adult, fantasy, and sci-fi genre. And it will include both traditionally published and of course self-published fantasy as well, because I love reading both traditionally published and self-published fantasy. And in today's video, we have 20 topics to cover. And of course, I will have to first mention this one, even though this news is not really news anymore, because I think many adult fantasy readers know about this one already. And yes, I am talking again about Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter. This is a new Kickstarter, not for his secret projects, not his 4 secret novels. This one is about the Stormlight Archive miniature Kickstarter, and this is done in collaboration with Brother Wise Games, and there is a tabletop RPG as well. The miniature designs will be done for many characters in the Stormlight Archive, such as Kaladin, Adeline, Dalinar, Shallan, Syl, Taravangian, and many more. And yes, these are canon interpretations of the characters approved by Brandon Sanderson himself. And so far, the Kickstarter has accumulated more than $2.3 million. So yes, it is way ahead of its goals already. But I will share the blog post or video to Brandon Sanderson's announcements and thoughts regarding this Kickstarter and more. And of course, I will also put the link to back the Kickstarter in the description down below. In my opinion, I think this is a very cool thing, but I also must say that I have no interest in miniature. I think the only action figures or miniatures that I have right now are for One Piece, and I only have about 2 or 3 of them, but that's it. I just don't have too many interests in getting action figures or miniatures. But really, I think this is very cool, and if you have any interest in getting yourself a miniature of Stormlight Archive, well, this is your chance. The Kickstarter is still running. And speaking of One Piece, the second news is about One Piece. So recently, someone actually made 100 volumes of One Piece and combined them into one volume. Yes, 21,540 pages long, 17 kilogram, and it's almost 1 meter long. It is literally the largest book in the world. I have no idea why they decided to make this kind of omnibus, but well, it is there and it's sold out already. 100 volumes of One Piece in one piece. That is incredible. Seriously, I think this is literally the largest book in the world right now. And this makes me wonder whether maybe someday a publishing company or someone will try to make an omnibus version of the entirety of this world, the Wandering Inn, or maybe the Cosmere. We'll see. And the next piece of news is about British Fantasy Society Awards. So the results are out. And I will leave the link to the announcement of the winners in the description down below. But I will just say that She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, a book that I really love, and it is the first book in Radiant Empire duology, just won the best fantasy novel of the year and also the best newcomer of the year. I think this is an incredible win, and I want to say congratulations to Shelley Parker Chan. The next news is about Witcher Netflix adaptation. So Witcher Netflix just announced that Witcher Blood and Origins will be released this Christmas. As for the main series adaptation, which will adapt the time of Contempt, it will be released on summer 2023. So it's still quite a while from now, which reminds me, I still need to read Blood of Elves and continue with this series. And now let's move on to the next section of this SFF Spotlight, and that is to talk about new book news and new cover reveals in the adult fantasy for traditionally published fantasy. After that, I will talk about self-published fantasy. And the first spotlight to talk about is Talonsister by Jen Williams has been announced. Yes, this is a new fantasy book by Jen Williams, the author behind the Copper Cat trilogy and one of my favorite trilogy of all time, the Winnowing Flame trilogy. It has been a while since Jen Williams wrote a new fantasy books. I think lately she's been writing in the thriller or mystery genre, and I haven't read those books yet, but this news makes me super happy, especially seeing that Winnowing Flame trilogy has been gaining plenty of new readership lately, and many of them are enjoying the books. It makes me super happy because Jen Williams deserves it. And this one, the first book, will be coming out in September 2023. So next year, and this series is inspired by a mystical ancient Britain with soaring griffins, wild forests, and warring kingdoms. Knowing what Jen Williams did in the Winnowing Frame trilogy, I think having griffins and, well, in this new duology will be something that she will execute magnificently well. Obviously, Talonsister has become one of my most anticipated books of next year. And the next news is again for another one of my most anticipated books of next year, and it is for Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. No, this is not the cover reveal. I am waiting for it very much though, because the cover art to the Bone Shard Daughter and the Bone Shard Emperor, both of them looks absolutely incredible in my opinion. But Andrea Stewart just announced that she is done with writing and also editing for the Bone Shard War. So yeah, the series is done and it is officially slated for April 2023. So only a few months from now, and I think I will reread the Bone Shard Daughter before I dive into the Bone Shard Emperor and then read the Bone Shard War, the conclusion of the Drowned Empire trilogy. And the next news is for a cover reveal, and this is for one of the most beautiful cover art that I've ever seen. And this is for The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty, the author behind the Devabad trilogy. The US cover art is illustrated by Ivan Belikov and it is designed by Mumtaz Mustafa. I haven't finished reading any books by Shannon Chakraborty yet, but I've heard plenty of great things about the Devabad trilogy, especially for the second book and the third book of the trilogy. But not gonna lie, this cover art looks absolutely stunning, and I think I will have to do a cover buy for this one, or a cover read, because this definitely got my attention. And this is what Shannon Chakraborty has to say regarding the cover art and also the book. I wrote The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi as the sort of book I've been craving for the past few years. A madcap adventure tale that offers excitement and escapism, but also a good dose of heart. The story follows the escapades of a former pirate and ship's captain, the eponymous Amina Al-Sirafi, when she is pulled out of retirement and hired to track down the kidnapped daughter of a late comrade. Offered a fortune and a righteous cause, Amina seizes on the chance to have her one last adventure. But no sooner starts getting her gang back together than it becomes pretty clear the assignment is both more dangerous and more supernatural than they expected. The book is inspired by and meant to be in conversation with the travelogues, adventure stories, and wonder literature so popular in the medieval Islamicate world. The most famed examples perhaps being the accounts of Ibn Battuta, The 1001 Nights, the world's most popular and enduring speculative fiction stories, and Al-Qaswini's Marvel of Creation. I've long adored these stories. Very little brings the past alive more than tales of extremely reliable travel disasters, clever con artists, and astonishing creatures. I've admired Evan's work since I first spotted his stunning design for The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Once we were discussing featuring a sea monster on the cover, he immediately sprang to mind and ended up knocking it out of the park. From the vibrant color work to the menacing beast, it evokes the sense of dangerous, chaos, and adventure I was hoping for. Ivan did a wonderful job of incorporating the historical details I shared. I wanted this to look like a vessel that would have actually sailed in the 12th century Indian Ocean. And that's for the US cover of the book. But I just saw on Goodreads and Amazon, and also this isn't an official cover reveal, but Chakraborty herself tweeted the link to the Goodreads page and it has the UK cover art. And I think for this one, the US cover art actually looks better in my opinion. And if I'm not mistaken, this UK cover art, it matches the design for the Devabad trilogy. So I think this one is done by Michaela Alcaino, I think. But again, there is no official cover reveal yet, so there is a possibility that this UK cover art will look different in its final stage, maybe. But anyway, I'm definitely keeping this book on my TBR pile and hopefully I will get to it next year. And the next news is again another cover reveal, and this one is for The Witch King by Martha Wells. Yes, the author behind the Murder Bot, the super popular Murder Bot, and many other fantasy books. And now Martha Wells is back to write another book and series in the fantasy genre. I think it has been quite a while for her. If I'm not mistaken, I think she has been so focused on writing Murder Bots, and The Witch King is being released on May 2023. The cover art for The Witch King is done by Cynthia Shepard. I think it looks beautiful and I look forward to reading this one. This is the blurb for The Witch King. From the breakout SFF superstar author of the Murder Bot Diaries comes a remarkable story of power and friendship, of trust and betrayal, and of the families we choose. Kai-Enna is the Witch King, though he hasn't always been, and he hasn't even always been Kai-Enna. After being murdered, his consciousness dormant and unaware of the passing of time, while confined in an elaborate water trap, Kai wakes to find a lesser mage attempting to harness Kai's magic to his own advantage. That was never going to go well. But why was Kai imprisoned in the first place? What has changed in the world since his assassination? And why does the Rising World Coalition appear to be growing in influence? Kai will need to pull his allies close and draw on all his pain magic if he is to answer even the least of these questions. He's not going to like the answers. So it is very likely that the Witch King feature a main character who lost his memories, mystery, magics, and of course found families, at least judging from the premise. And I'm quite excited about this one. I feel a bit lukewarm on the first book of Murderbot, but I still have the entire series in my TBR pile because I heard that the series do get better after the first book, and I am certainly looking forward to reading The Witch King because, well, you all know that fantasy and sci-fi are my favorite genre, and I heard that her previous fantasy books are also good and underrated. Well, consider me interested in checking this one out. Then the final two news before I talk about self-published fantasy books, both of them are related to Legends and Lattes. So first, the UK cover art for Legends and Lattes, the traditionally published edition in the UK, has been revealed and it looks beautiful. It looks beautiful, but I heard that many of you prefer getting a hardcover edition of the original cover art. Now, in the UK edition, I heard from Travis Baldry that the original cover art will be featured on the front page of the book in black and white. So, in a way, you will still kind of get the original cover art in the UK edition, UK hardcover edition, and also paperback, I think. But if you still prefer getting a hardcover edition of the original cover art in the front page, in the front cover, well, the Broken Binding just announced that they will be doing a special edition of Legends and Lattes, and it will feature the original cover art as its cover art. It will have a pink spray edges and of course a new design on the naked hardcover. So it is up to you which one do you prefer, but as always the Broken Binding edition is limited, so make sure to get your hands on it as soon as possible. And that's it for traditionally published and sci-fi spotlight. And now let's talk about self-published fantasy stuff. And the first one is related to the Broken Binding, and it is for Ryan Cahill's special edition for his debut of Blood and Fire. So yes, The Bound and the Broken will have a special edition and it will be released by the Broken Binding. I think this is such an amazing thing to do from the Broken Binding and also from Ryan Cahill. I have known about this for I can't remember how long, but it's been a few months. I've known about this for a few months now. So Ryan Cahill was kind enough to actually involve me in the creation process of this special edition, in choosing cover artists, in choosing interior artworks, and choosing the cartographer, and I am so thankful for it. So with this announcement, Broken Binding also announced that they will be opening their own small indie publishing press, meaning that they will focus on producing special edition for self-published fantasy books. I think this is a truly wonderful news, especially for self-published fantasy books that are usually released in paperbacks. Because every time we talk about special edition, whether it's Folio Society, Subterranean Press, Grim Oak Press, Curious King, Centipede Press, and well, many more, almost all of them are focused on traditionally published books. And I think this is actually the first one that will focus itself on self-published fantasy books, and I cannot wait. This is just the first step. This is just the first step in a new, hopefully revolutionary thing. But going back to Of Blood and Fire, the new cover art will be done by Nemo Art, the interior artworks will be done by Felix Ortiz and Randy Vargas, and the fully colored map printed on the end papers will be done by Soraya Corcoran. This special edition has the potential to make Of Blood and Fire Broken Binding edition, or well, special edition, the best looking self-published fantasy books of all time. We will see how it looks in the final result, but so far, from what I've seen, it has all the potential. And speaking of special edition, the next news is related to special edition, and this is for the Coraidic Saga by Alicia von Stahlberg. A Kickstarter for a hardcover omnibus of the trilogy is coming soon. I've read the first book and the second book. I think both of them were really good, especially the first book, Blood of Heirs. It is an incredibly well-written, character-driven book, and I cannot wait to see the hardcover omnibus of this edition. I hope that it will look good, and I will make sure to feature it on SFF Spotlight when the Kickstarter goes live. And next, we have a cover reveal for A Fracture in the Qwisdeep by Travis Riddle. This is the second book in in Jekua series. This is a Pokemon progression fantasy series, Pokemon-inspired progression fantasy series. I've heard plenty of great things about this one, but I haven't read the series yet. I haven't started reading the series yet, and the cover art is done by Bud Singh. As you can see, it is very Pokemon-inspired, and plenty of people who have read the book and also love Pokemon think that it is very much inspired by Pokemon and it did Pokemon justice. I look forward to reading this someday. And the next news is again for a cover reveal, a gorgeous cover reveal for The Battle That Was Lost by Michael S. Jackson. This is the prequel novella to the Ringlander series, so this takes place before the first book, The Path and the Way. I haven't read the book yet, but this cover art is done by John Anthony Di Giovanni, and I've read the novella. And you can actually see my name featured on the front cover, and I want to say thank you to the author for featuring my thoughts on the front cover. I think it is a good novella. It is action-packed, and even though I haven't read The Path and the Way yet, I think this novella, The Battle That Was Lost, showed glimpses of the author's strength at writing battle scenes. I hope that the main novel will feature better narrative, characterization, and action scenes, and of course world building with more pages than the novella, because this novella is so short. It's about 50 pages long. But yeah, well done to the author and the artist. I think the cover art looks amazing. John Anthony Di Giovanni never miss with his cover art. They all look so good. The next news is again for a cover reveal, and this is for book number 8 in the Thousand Lee series by Tao Wong, The Third Realm, with the cover art by Felipe de Barros. Again, this is another one that I haven't read yet. I haven't started reading the series yet, but I put the entire series in my TBR pile after many people said that if you love Cradle by Will White, you should consider putting this series in your TBR pile, and so that's what I did. I heard that this series will be 12 books long, and I think I will give it a try. I think I will give it a read when the series is done next year. I'm not sure whether it is planned to be finished next year or not, but the author is actually quite fast in producing books in the series. So yeah, maybe next year or 2024, we'll see. The last of Harvest Fantasy news before I move on to talking about 5 noteworthy releases. This is for Illborn by Daniel T. Jackson. Illborn is one of my favorite books of the year, and Daniel T. Jackson just announced that this book, his debut, will be discounted into $0.99 until the 3rd of October. So if you haven't read Illborn yet, if you haven't owned Illborn, this is your chance, especially because the second book, I Dual Sin, is coming in January. So yeah, make sure to get it, and I hope you will love reading it. And now let's talk about noteworthy release. For the first 3 noteworthy release, I will just mention them at once because my patrons actually show that he has got the books for these 3, and those are the new edition for Secret History by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella in the Mistborn saga, but I cannot talk too much about this one because, well, everything about this novella is spoilers, and I really appreciate the new cover art by Howard Lyon because for those of you who haven't read Mistborn yet, I think this cover art will mean little or nothing to you, but for those who have read Mistborn, this cover art holds plenty of significant details and, well, meaning. Other than Secret History, the new edition for Blood of Elves, the first book in The Witcher, with the cover art by Richard Anderson, and also The Time of Contempt, the second main novel in the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski, with the new cover art by Magali Villeneuve, are out now. This cover art looks amazing. I love the new cover art for The Witcher. I think it is about time The Witcher get a brand new cover art that looks so much better than their previous edition. And for those of you who are wondering when the UK edition will appear, I heard that the UK edition will be released next year with the same cover art and same design. And the next noteworthy release I would like to mention is for Mark of the Fool by G.M. Clarke. This is narrated by Travis Baldry, the author behind Legends and Lattes, and I haven't read this one, but the cover art looks good, and this is what it says. Enter the Magic Academy, where Alex will learn from mad wizards, make allies, practice alchemy, fight mana vampires, and oh yeah, try to pay tuition. So I, as a fantasy reader, have a soft spot for magic school, and also I love alchemy. I think alchemy is rarely featured in epic fantasy, and it is great to hear a fantasy book that has alchemy in it. And also the cover art looks amazing. But I don't know who did the cover art. If you know who did the cover art for this one, do let me know. And the next noteworthy release I would like to spotlight is for Remnant by Christopher Russell. This is the second book in Divinity's Twilight. It is a much bigger book than the first book, Rebirth, which I've read and enjoyed. It is a Stormlight archive inspired and also steampunk fantasy. From the early reviews for Remnant, I think pretty much all of them agree that this is a hugely better book and vast improvement over the first book. And I look forward to reading this one. The cover art is done by Chris McGrath. And from what I remember in the first book, I remember that this series, I think I mentioned this in my review as well, I think I mentioned that this series has a big potential to be incredible. And I think if the second book actually delivered on that front, I think it's only a matter of time before people start reading and loving the series. More people. Finally, the last noteworthy release and also the last spotlight on this video, it is for The Golden Enclave by Naomi Novik. This is the third book, the final book in the Scholomance, and it is being released on the 27th of September. So that's tomorrow. Although I didn't like at all reading Uprooted, I love Spinning Silver and I will consider checking this trilogy out. So yeah, that's it for today's SFF Spotlight video. Do let me know which spotlight or news that you love hearing about the most. And as always, thank you so much for watching and thank you for your support. Bye bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons.